I can't believe the last time I did one of these videos, I mistook a picture of Go Nagai for Akira Toriyama, especially after the disaster that was that first video. But here we go. Current state of Shonen Jump 2020. No mistakes at all this time, probably. If you're a recent follower of my channel and maybe have no idea what weekly Shonen Jump is, it is a weekly Japanese magazine that publishes the most recent chapters of around 20 different ongoing manga titles, each one of which is battling in a war to become the top series of Jump. And it's kind of brutal. The cutthroat style of Jump means that any series seen as underperforming teeters on the brink of cancellation, while its most popular titles, your Narutos, your One Pieces, and your Dragon Balls, go on to be adapted into anime, movies, and video games, even transcending the magazine itself and becoming bona fide worldwide phenomenon. And why I like doing these videos is not only to take a look at the ever-shifting battleground that is Jump, but to shine a light on the magazine's hidden gems, and to try and see which ones could potentially become Jump's next earth-shattering title. Which right now is a really interesting question, not only because many of Jump's major titles are entering the twilight of their runs, but also because 2019 is the first time in 12 years that a series outsold One Piece? All of which we will get to, but first I think it's important we take a moment and honor the fallen. So let's talk about the series that did not make it out of 2019. The two most notable casualties in the war to stay on Jump's pages were Hinamaru Zumo and Shokugeki no Soma. Although casualties is probably overstating things, both series had long lucrative runs spanning hundreds of chapters and have come to what feels like a natural conclusion, with Hanamaru Zumo being the never that popular but quietly adored sumo title that had some of the best goddamn artwork in Jump. Illustrated with a weight and intensity that made matches of sumo feel like battles of mythical gods, while the fanservice-heavy Shokugeki no Soma made the act of cooking feel like a desperate war for survival, leveraging the strength of non-battle battle manga to fight its way into the sacred ground of Jump's most popular titles in 2017, before a gradual loss in popularity preceded its conclusion in December of last year. And while it's always sad to see two veteran series come to an end like this, both these titles had tremendous runs and their authors can go out with their heads held high, which unfortunately is an experience that only precious few have. Jump have been brutal in their cutting, with titles like singing manga Alice and Tayo failing to amass any kind of real following, running for less than 20 issues before vanishing from Jump's pages. And a lot of series went this way. Teenage Renaissance David, Neo Palatian, Hellwarden Haguma, The Last Sayuki, You Cameo Let's Loose, Double Tessai, Tokyo Shinobu Squad, and Beast Children all suffered low sales, short runs, and cancellation. And while the impact of these titles was minimal, I have to imagine the work and passion it took to even get them to Jump's pages must have been immense, which is why I like to honor their authors here and wish them better luck in their future creations. But I also think that Jump needs to be ruthless in its cutting, and especially now, as this is what makes space for the brand new titles of the magazine. The first of which is Mission Yozakura Family, telling the tale of a young lad who, after becoming engaged to his childhood sweetheart in order to not be murdered by her psychotic assassin brother, must undergo a life of hellish training and espionage in order to integrate into the family of spies. It's a fun, lighthearted title, but Yozakura Family's biggest problem is that there is just another current title doing the same thing but arguably much better, in Jump Plus's Spy X Family, taking on a very similar idea with a young spy building a pretend family, only doing it with superior artwork, sharper writing, and some really heartfelt moments that made the series one of the breakout titles of last year. and unfortunately leaving Yozakura family looking a little uninspired by comparison. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Mitama Security Spirit Busters, starring a psychic detective who is terrified of ghosts, and this being a comedy manga, Spirit Busters is going to live and die by how funny it is. And so it's fortunate that Spirit Busters is fucking hilarious, not only because its author is a master at establishing scenarios and then wildly subverting them, but because he just knows how to draw comedy. I mean, just look at this drawing. If you don't think this is great, then this series probably isn't for you, but also I don't think we could be friends. It's early days for Spirit Busters yet, and while a comedy series is never going to make it to the peak of Jump, that doesn't mean this title couldn't have a long successful run in the vein of other comedy titles like The Disastrous Life of Saki K. Jump also has a fresh batch of newer titles that have only started releasing, some of which are just a little too early on for me to feel comfortable giving a full opinion on, but there are others like Zip Man, centering around a high schooler who finds a technologically advanced suit, allowing him to battle villains through the streets of Tokyo in tokusatsu-style showdowns. And it's fine, it's a very typical shonen story that I fear is going to have trouble standing out among Jump's ranks, which is definitely not a problem a Gravity Boys has. A strange series about a group of attractive morons colonizing a new planet after the people of Earth have been wiped out by a nuclear blast. And it's a fun idea with some sublime artwork, but the issue I have is that it falls somewhere between a genuine sci-fi story and an episodic comedy, and I'm just not sure it does either well enough to elevate itself above Jump's other titles. But it's still early days, and if it can find its voice, this could become an interesting oddity for Jump. The most anticipated new title of the magazine is undoubtedly Samurai 8, and that's because it's from Masashi Kishimoto, the guy responsible for Naruto, which is easily one of the most successful and widespread manga of all time, but now shifting his focus from ninja to samurai, or more specifically, cybernetic space samurai, with Kishimoto handling the writing and storyboards, with art by Akira Okubo. I was really excited to read this one, as it's not every day a legitimate legend of the manga industry starts a new series, but unfortunately I've come away with my doubts about the future of Samurai 8. Which is a shame because there is some good stuff here. Hachimaru's relationship with his father is genuinely really touching, Nanashi is one of the more interesting side characters of a shonen manga, and there's a moment where a Shiba Inu dual wields some pistols. But the issue is that the series is so dense with lore and world building that the actual characters and story are buried under talk of samurai souls, key holders, locker balls, the problem being that even when you scrape the dense layer of science fiction aside, all you're really left with is a very standard feeling traditional shonen battle series in a magazine whose upper echelons are dense with traditional shonen battle series. And unfortunately, I don't seem to be the only one that feels that way. Samurai 8's first two volumes sold exceedingly poorly in their first week, with volume 1 selling 12,000 copies and volume 2 and 3 dropping to just 11,000 copies. And to give some context to that, volume 1 of Dr. Stone sold triple that in its first week, and without the massive marketing push that Samurai 8 received. And while it's not impossible for series in Samurai 8's position to turn it around, it's just very unlikely. And I have to say, I'm a little heartbroken for Kishimoto, but then again, this is a guy with absolutely nothing left to prove. And so that's it for Shonen Jump's new titles, meaning it's now time to take our first steps into the hallowed halls of Shonen Jump's biggest series. But first, a little note on how do we define big. In previous videos, this is something I've done through the table of content averages, and in hindsight, there are way more reliable metrics I could have been using, and I was a stubborn dumbass for sticking with them as long as I did. So I wanted to apologize for the misinformation spread, both in these videos and in the original Fall of Bleach video. I will do my best to do better. So forget TOC rankings, fuck them. From now on, we're going to be using the total yearly sales estimates as tallied by oricon.com. And so with that in mind, let's count down Jump's 10 biggest series. Number 2 will shock you. We begin with a series whose success in Jump is still a little baffling to me in Act Age. It jumps number 10 most popular title and trailing only slightly behind We Never Learn. A harem series about a high school tutor tasked with raising the grades of a variety of charming young ladies, and romantic mischief ensues. It's a sweet series with some of the most endearing artwork in Jump, selling 1.2 million copies and landing it at Jump's number 9 spot. And honestly, I'd have thought it would have rose a little higher considering the 2019 anime, but maybe its lack of punching, sports, or lasers means it's never going to break Jump's glass ceiling. Unlike Jujutsu Kaisen, a series about a group of high school students battling the occult, with some solid artwork and great action. Jujutsu Kaisen has steadily been building in popularity since it began, and now closing in on its 100th chapter, and with an anime due out this year, 2020 could well be the year that we see this series explode. But as of 2019, it sold 1.5 million volumes, placing it at number 8 and within striking distance of veteran series Black Clover. Black Clover is a traditional-ass battle manga that leans heavily into trope and convention, and while it's going to divide people whether that's a good or a bad thing, it hasn't stopped the series doing extremely well, selling 1.7 million units in 2019, and while that is a drop from 2018, that's likely due to the late 2017 anime bringing in an influx of new fans buying back issues, inflating its sales for that year. And if we look at the series' volume sales, we can see that it's still selling as much as it ever has. And just to note, you might notice a little drop off in sales figures as the year goes on, but that's actually pretty normal, by virtue that older tankobons are out longer and therefore have more time in which they can sell. And so it only really means something if you see a continuous drop over multiple years, or in the rare case that volume sales actually start increasing as the year goes on, which would represent an extreme explosion in popularity. But I mean, that could never happen, right? It's not like we could see a series that popular in this video. Next up is a little bit of a heartbreaker for me in Dr. Stone, the story of all of humanity being frozen in stone before two teenagers awaken 3,700 years later, who must restart the planet by choosing who to bring back and who to leave frozen, before starting a war with what is basically Hitler as a beautiful caveman. And what I love about this series is not just the gorgeous artwork or fun characters, but how it took the engine of shonen battle and power escalation and replaced it with a war driven by scientific advancements. The reason I use the word heartbreaking is that I really thought 2019 was going to be the year of Dr. Stone. And at the heart of that was its anime adaptation. But unfortunately, while the anime wasn't terrible, it also wasn't really anything else, being a very basic adaptation using none of the strengths of animation to elevate its source material. Meaning the potential of Dr. Stone never reached that wider audience that I really think it could have. With the series selling a commendable 1.8 million copies, taking it to the threshold of Jump's top 5, but not crossing it at number 6. The reason I make a big deal about this is that once you enter the sacred realm of Jump's top 5 series, there's an ocean of difference between these titles and everything that came before them. While there's less than 100,000 sales between positions 7 and 6, there's a difference of 2.7 million sales between positions 6 and 5. Meaning that we are now entering the territory of Jump's monster series that define the magazine, the first of which is Haikyuu. At 4.5 million sales, the Beautiful Boys Doing Things Well Volleyball Edition manga has enjoyed near constant success, coming up on its 40th volume. Haikyuu now being the third oldest title in the magazine, second if you don't count Hunter x Hunter, but let me dream. A consistently high quality story, dynamic artwork, and a great 4-season anime has kept this series strong for 8 years. And while the sun may be setting on the Flightless Crows with Haikyuu entering its final arc, it's had a spectacular run run, and its author, Haruchi Furutate, can end the series proud. At number 4 is My Hero Academia, and while this series has never been my personal favourite title in Jump, it doesn't change the fact that it's still a sales juggernaut, with a massive influx of sales in 2018, likely due to the release of its feature film, but still consistently selling over 5 million volumes year on year. But what's kind of shocking and speaks to the insane strength of Jump's current lineup is that even with those monstrous numbers, Hero Academia was not able to break into Jump's top 3, due in part to the monumental and surprising success of Promised Neverland. Since I started doing these videos, I've been talking about the potential of Promised Neverland as something new and different for Jump, but even I had no idea that the series was going to hit this hard or rise this far. Backed by an absolutely stellar anime adaptation and some frankly batshit insane developments in the manga, Promised Neverland exploded last year, with volume sales even surpassing My Hero Academia, with its total yearly sales climbing to 7.4 million. And to put in perspective how insane a number that is, that's more than Naruto's sales at their absolute peak, cementing Promised Neverland as part of Jump's new Big 3, losing out only to the 2 most popular titles of the magazine. Which brings us to the king of Shonen, the immortal, the unkillable, the 20-year behemoth. It's One Piece. If I was to try and explain One Piece's success in a single sentence, it would be that what started off as an excellent story about a single character has over 2 decades evolved into an excellent story about an entire world. One that's scope has transcended what people even thought was possible with shonen manga, the story continuing to evolve in the most recent Wano arc, even introducing what could be One Piece's endgame villain, as well as offering a tantalizing glimpse as to what Goldie Roger's treasure might be. This is how big One Piece is. There's only 15 million units separating One Piece's lifetime global sales and that of Batman's, meaning in as little as 2 years, One Piece could potentially become the 2nd most popular comic book of all time, second only to Superman. And with 10 million units sold this year, One Piece lands firmly at Jump's number 2 spot. Oh shit, I forgot we were recording. That's right, for the first time in over a decade, One Piece has been outsold by another series. In author Koyaharu Gotoge and her debut ongoing series, Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer. It's hard to argue that Demon Slayer is doing anything that new or original in shonen, but it's equally hard to argue that there are any ongoing series right now doing traditional shonen better than Demon Slayer, polishing the conventions of the genre down to a glistening gleam and using it to tell a story of familial love that is both intimate and brutal. And as a result, it's hard not to be pulled into Tanjiro's story, not to feel his pain as he struggles to protect his only remaining family, not to root for him as he masters new abilities in the face of increasingly hopeless battles, or be touched by the somber sense of empathy he shows his demonic enemies in their final moments. Demon Slayer is great, but the catalyst for its success came in the form of one of the most stunning TV adaptations ever. Studio Ufotable giving life to Tanjiro's story, elevating it beyond even the manga, resulting in such an explosion of popularity that its sales actually increased volume to volume, driving Demon Slayer to 12 million units sold, surpassing even One Piece. And so, there you have it. We have a new king of shonen. One Piece is dead. All hail Demon Slayer. Only, not quite. While Demon Slayer did technically outsell One Piece, the volume sales tell a different story, with One Piece selling double Demon Slayer's numbers each and every volume. What's happening here is that the bulk of Demon Slayer's sales are coming from the influx of new fans brought in by the anime, who by buying back issues are inflating Demon Slayer's numbers past what they would normally be. And so while it is technically true that Demon Slayer outsold One Piece, it's not really true to say that it's more popular, as less people are actually reading it. And none of that is to disparage Demon Slayer's achievements. Honestly, I think it's so awesome that a series was able to rise up and scratch the face of God like this. But for now, One Piece is still the undisputed king of shonen. But you also have to wonder, for how much longer? One Piece can't go on forever, and when it does end, what will that mean for Jump and its dominance over the manga industry? And that's a question that starts to carry more weight when you consider that out of Shonen Jump's top 5 titles, 3 out of the 5 are entering their final arcs, those being Haikyuu, Promise Neverland, and even Demon Slayer. With Hero Academia originally envisioned to end at volume 30, which would be around the beginning of next year, although those plans seem to have changed according to a 2018 interview. But still, it's not hard to imagine that in the next 2 to 3 years, Jump could be losing the vast majority of its most popular titles. And while it does still have its sleeping giant in my beloved Hunter x Hunter, after more than a year of hiatus, who knows what the future of that title even is. What all this means is that if Jump wants to maintain its place within the industry, now is the time it needs to be fostering new titles that will take up the place of the old, to take chances on series that are new and different, ones that could shock current readers and potentially draw in new audiences, series that one day could become the lifeblood of the magazine. Man, too bad I can't think of any series like that. Chainsaw Man began life in late 2018. Telling the story of Denji, who, after fusing with his demonic chainsaw dog, obtains the power of chainsaws and is taken in by a secret devil-hunting organization and tasked with hunting and killing the Gun Devil, a being responsible for a cataclysmic worldwide massacre that lasted only a few minutes but killed millions of people. Initially, the idea for Chainsaw Man doesn't seem that original. It's Devilman with chainsaws. And what's more, unlike nearly every other series in Jump, the artwork has this unfinished, jagged feel. But the more I read Chainsaw Man, the more I started to feel like I was experiencing something really special. There's both a cynicism and intimacy to this series that is not apparent at first glance. And while the artwork is rough, it's also oddly beautiful in its own way. Not only because author Tatsuki Fujimoto has a talent in depicting disturbing images of horror, but also because he's adept at conveying emotion through his comics, not afraid to use an entire double-page spread to establish a mood and tone, which helps give a sincere level of emotion to these characters. And that really matters with this series, because even more important than its gruesome, chaotic battles is the lives of the people who fight them. Each character in their own way, a beautifully flawed human train wreck. Take Denji, for example. He begins the story with nothing, no home, no friends, and owing his organs to the Yakuza. But after becoming a devil hunter, he slowly starts to piece together how to be a person. At first, just happy to have a bed to sleep in, but then coming to the revelation that he needs a purpose in life, and that it's now his goal to touch a boob. And yes, that's pretty dumb, but then when he actually does, he's struck by a sense of emptiness, his life losing all meaning before he enters a near existential crisis, before coming to the epiphany that sexual contact doesn't mean a whole lot without emotional intimacy behind it. And that's a piece of his character that continues to develop over the course of the story, as he learns to appreciate art and even forms relationships with the other devil hunters, all of whom have these beautifully poignant moments that make them feel human and alive. And while the series is also hilarious, somehow teetering between a disturbing work of horror and a balls-to-the-wall action manga, it's ultimately the stories of these very broken characters trying to find their way amidst the chaos that keeps me thinking about Chainsaw Man long after the chapters have ended. I do worry Chainsaw Man might just be too weird to be accepted by Jump's larger audience, but surprisingly it has actually done pretty well in the first year, selling around 400,000 copies. And what I'd say is, if you take anything from this video, please give Chainsaw Man a shot. Out of everything we've talked about, this is the series that has me the most excited for what a new era of Jump could be. Friends, that's gonna do it. I want to give a shout out to Rugia for once again helping me with the research on this video. I'm gonna link his manga blog in the description and you should really check it out. He's a good guy and incredibly knowledgeable. If you enjoyed this video and would like to help me make more like it, you can do so over on patreon.com/super Eyepatchwolf, where for only a single dollar you can support this channel and pay for the electricity and food I need to make videos. This video I'd particularly like to thank Chimchiri, a pathetic gentleman, Son of Enki, Baron Blackthorn, ContraPoints, Robin Kashibi, and Catgirl Riles. You can also find me hosting the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast or on Twitter @Eyepatchwolf. Friends, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.